Usually when we talk about a burglar, a very specific, almost cinematic image comes to mind.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like a guy in a ski mask.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. A person dressed entirely in dark clothing, maybe using a steel crowbar to pry open a back window in the dead of night.
The classic Hollywood break-in.
Yeah. It's a deliberate, planned, and frankly terrifying intrusion into a space where they just, well, do not belong.
Right.
It is not typically an 11-year-old girl standing in a brightly lit retail store on a Tuesday afternoon eating a stolen piece of candy.
No, definitely not what you picture.
And yet, welcome to today's deep dive, where that exact scenario is what we are looking at.
It's a wild case.
It really is. So, today's mission is to dissect a core legal problem for you. Like, how does an impulsive minor theft by a child miraculously transform into a felony burglary charge?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Yeah. To do this, we're going to tear apart the statutory boundaries of burglary. We're going to look closely at how courts step in to prevent absurd, purely literal interpretations of the law from, creating accidental felons out of everyday people.
Exactly. And to do that, we have a very specific analytical path laid out for you today.
Awesome. Where do we start?
So we are going to examine the statutory definition of second-degree burglary, specifically looking at South Dakota law.
Okay, South Dakota.
Right. We're going to dissect the actus reus, which is the physical guilty act required by the law.
Got it.
And we're really focusing on the massive difference between entering a structure versus remaining in a structure.
Oh, wow. Okay. That sounds like a subtle distinction.
It is, but it's huge. We'll explore the critical timing of a person's criminal intent. And finally, we will uncover how courts rely on underlying legislative intent and, historical common law precedent to rein in overzealous prosecutions.
Okay, but just so we are crystal clear on the stakes before we get to our candy thief, why fight so hard over this distinction?
I mean, it's a fair question.
Right, because, if someone steals something, they are a thief either way, right? What exactly transforms a simple theft into a second-degree burglary under South Dakota law?
Well, it all comes down to the severity of the punishment and the permanent mark on a person's record.
Okay. The consequences.
Exactly. If you steal a piece of candy, that is simple larceny or petty theft, it's a minor misdemeanor.
Like a slap on the wrist.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
You might face a small fine, maybe some community service, but your life goes on. Burglary, on the other hand, is an entirely different beast.
How so?
Well, the foundation of this entire discussion rests on the general rule found in South Dakota Codified Law, or SDCL 2232-3.
Okay.
This statute defines second-degree burglary, which is a Class 3 felony.
Oh, wow. A felony.
Yeah, a felony conviction can carry years in a state penitentiary. It can strip you of your voting rights and ruin your future employment prospects. It's life-changing.
Or a piece of candy. That's intense.
It is. So we can break this rule down explicitly into its testable elements.
Let's hear them.
First, a person enters or remains.
Right.
Second, in an occupied structure. Third, with the intent to commit a crime therein.
Okay. Enters or remains, occupied structure, intent to commit a crime.
Right. And there is a qualifying condition that this must occur under circumstances not amounting to first-degree burglary.
What's first degree then?
That generally involves more aggravating factors, like being armed with a weapon or committing the crime in the middle of the night.
Ah, the guy with the crowbar.
Exactly.
Hmm.
But those first three elements, enters or remains, occupied structure, intent to commit a crime, those are the core of the doctrine we need to understand today.
Let's analyze. In the matter of T.J.E. first, what are the legally dispositive facts?
So the facts are straightforward, but they're crucial for everything that follows.
Okay.
We have an 11-year-old girl identified in the court records by her initials, T.J.E.
Right.
She entered a retail store with her aunt during regular business hours. The store was open to the public.
Completely normal so far.
Right. But while she was inside the store, T.J.E. took a piece of candy from a display, ate it right there in the aisle, and then walked out of the store with her aunt without paying for it.
Oh, man. Kids, right?
Yeah. She was stopped outside by the store manager, and she ultimately admitted to him that she had eaten the candy without paying.
Okay, so she confessed to the theft.
She did. And based on these events, the state filed a delinquency petition, which is basically the juvenile court system's equivalent of a criminal indictment, alleging that she committed second-degree burglary.
Wait, burglary? Really?
Yes. And the circuit court actually sustained those allegations.
You're kidding.
Nope. The trial judge found she had indeed committed the felony of second-degree burglary.
And what was the core legal issue?
The core issue before the South Dakota Supreme Court was this. Did the state provide sufficient evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that T.J.E. either entered or remained in the store with the intent to commit a crime therein?
What rule of law did the court apply? Please state the full black-letter rule and break it down into its testable elements.
The court applied the black-letter rule found in STCL 2232-3. The rule states, and I'm quoting here, "Any person who enters or remains in an occupied structure with intent to commit any crime therein under circumstances not amounting to first-degree burglary is guilty of second-degree burglary."
Okay, and the elements.
The court explicitly broke this down into its testable elements. Element 1, enters or remains. Element 2, in an occupied structure. Element 3, with intent to commit a crime therein.
Thank you. Now for the court's elemental analysis. Let's walk through this step by step. How did the court apply the first element, entering with intent?
Well, the first question the court had to answer was one of strict timing.
Timing, like when she decided to steal.
Exactly. Did T.J.E. have the intent to steal that candy at the exact moment she walked through the doors of the retail store?
Oh, I see.
The legal standard here requires that the state of mind and the physical act have to sync up perfectly. You must harbor that criminal intent the exact second your foot crosses the threshold.
Okay, so how do they apply that to an 11-year-old?
Well, when applying the facts of T.J.E.'s case to this standard, the court noted that she is an 11-year-old child who acted impulsively after she was already wandering around inside the store.
Right, she probably just saw the candy and grabbed it.
Exactly. The court specifically contrasted her case with a prior precedent, State v. Schult.
What happened in Schult?
To give you some context on Schult, in that case, the South Dakota Supreme Court affirmed a burglary conviction because the defendant didn't just wander in.
Oh, he planned it.
He actually admitted to the police that he had cased the convenience store and possessed the specific premeditated intent to commit theft before he ever walked through the front doors.
Wow. Okay, yeah, that's completely different.
Right. His mental state and his physical entry synced up. But for T.J.E., there was absolutely no proof in the record that she harbored any criminal intent at the time she crossed the threshold with her aunt.
So what did the court decide on that part?
Therefore, the court concluded that the entry with intent portion of the element was definitively not met.
Wait, if she was still physically standing inside the store when she decided to eat the candy, isn't she remaining in the structure while intending to steal? A literal reading of the word makes her guilty, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it is a great question, and it's exactly why the prosecutor felt confident bringing the charge in the first place.
Right, because if you look it up...
You pull out a dictionary and look up the word remains, it simply means to continue to exist or be left in a place.
Exactly.
So yes, physically, she remained in the store while she decided to eat the candy. The state argued that under a strict, literal reading of the statute, the moment she formed the intent to steal while still inside the building, she satisfied the elements of burglary.
It makes logical sense on paper.
It does. But the court realized that applying a purely literal interpretation to that single word would rip the entire concept of burglary away from its historical roots.
Historical roots? How so?
Well, to understand why, you have to look at the spirit of the law. Common law burglary was never created to protect property.
Wait, it wasn't?
No, that is what larceny laws are for. Burglary was created to protect the sanctity and security of an occupied space.
No, I see.
It is meant to punish the terror of an unauthorized intrusion. If you walk into a bank during business hours to cash a check, you're an invitee. You have a right to be there.
Right.
If you suddenly decide to steal from the open vault, you are absolutely committing a serious crime, but you haven't violated the structural security of the building itself in the way a burglar does.
Understood. Now, what about the second element? Remaining with intent.
So this is where the court uses policy and legislative intent as a safety valve against chaos.
A safety valve. I like that.
Yeah. The question the court had to answer was, does the word remains in the statute mean mere physical presence, or does it require an unlawful presence?
Okay. And what's the standard for figuring that out?
The legal standard the court applied is a cornerstone of statutory interpretation. It says that where a literal interpretation of a statute leads to absurd or unreasonable results, the law is considered ambiguous.
And when it's ambiguous...
The court must look deeper than the dictionary. To figure out what remains actually means in this context, the South Dakota court looked to California law for guidance.
Oh, interesting. What California case?
Specifically, a fascinating case called People v. Gauze.
Ah.
In Gauze, A man actually walked into his own apartment, which he shared with a roommate, with the intent to shoot his roommate.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and he did. The prosecution tried to charge him with burglary because he entered an occupied structure with the intent to commit a felony.
But wait, it was his own apartment.
Exactly. And the California Supreme Court struck down the burglary charge for that exact reason. They established the principle that burglary retains the common law requirement that the perpetrator must have no right to be in the building.
So you literally cannot burglarize your own home.
Right. Based on this logic, the South Dakota court interpreted the word remains in their own statute to mean unlawfully remains.
So how did they apply that unlawfully remains standard to an 11-year-old in a retail store?
They leaned heavily on the policy rationale. The court reasoned that if remains simply meant mere physical presence, then the results would be completely absurd.
Like what?
Well, every single teenage shoplifter instantly becomes a felony burglar.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
In fact, if you walk into a grocery store and decide to forge a check, or you get into a fistfight in the aisle, you are committing a crime indoors.
Right, right.
Under the state's literal reading, any indoor crime elevates to a felony burglary simply because you were standing inside a building when you did it.
That would clog up the courts so fast with felonies.
Exactly. The court pointed out that the legislature amended the burglary statutes in 1976 to add the word remains.
Why did they add it then?
To catch a very specific type of criminal. The person who enters a store lawfully during the day, but then hides in the bathroom or a supply closet until the store closes so they can rob the register at night.
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
Right. The moment the store closes, their status changes. Their presence becomes unlawful.
But T.J.E. was there during the day.
Exactly. T.J.E. entered a public business during its normal open hours. She was an invitee. She was lawfully present the entire time she was in the store.
Makes sense.
The court also cited a 1904 case, People v. Britain, which illustrates this beautifully.
What happened in 1904?
It established that if a person enters a store lawfully to buy supplies, but then changes their mind after entering and decides to steal instead, that is larceny.
Okay, so the law won't pretend it was a burglary just because it happened indoors?
Right. The law will not pretend a lawful entry was unlawful just because a crime happened later. Consequently, the court concluded that the unlawfully remaining element was definitely not met because T.J.E. was lawfully present in the store when she formed the intent to eat the candy.
And after analyzing all the elements, what was the court's final conclusion?
The court synthesized these findings into a very clear holding. Because the state failed to prove she entered the store with criminal intent, and simultaneously failed to prove she unlawfully remained when she later formed that intent to eat the candy, the evidence was insufficient as a matter of law.
So they threw it out.
They did. The Supreme Court completely reversed the Circuit Court's juvenile delinquency adjudication. T.J.E. was a shoplifter, yes, but she was not a burglar.
That distinction between remaining and unlawfully remaining is so critical, and honestly, it is a massive relief that the court stepped in.
Yeah, common sense prevailed.
To really cement the court's policy argument about these absurd results, I want to throw an unforgettable, maybe slightly gross hypothetical scenario your way.
Uh-oh. Okay, let's hear it.
Imagine a patron legally enters an all-you-can-eat buffet.
Okay.
They pay their $20 entry fee at the door. The hostess seats them, and they are totally allowed to be there.
Right, they're an invitee.
Midway through their meal, they wander up to the carving station. Suddenly, they are overcome by an intense, bizarre greed. They decide to secretly shove an entire dripping hot roast beef down into their pants to take home.
Oh, gross.
Right, juice is getting everywhere. It is a total mess. But strictly legally speaking, under the trial court's purely literal reading of the word remains, is this meat smuggler now a felony burglar?
It is a highly visceral image, but the legal answer is yes.
Really?
Under that rejected, purely literal interpretation the state was pushing for, they absolutely would be. The exact moment that patrons shoved the dripping roast beef into their trousers while still physically standing inside the buffet building, they were remaining in an occupied structure with the intent to commit a crime theft.
That is insane.
It is. That purely literal reading elevates a weird, messy, and frankly hilarious petty theft into a Class 3 felony burglary. They would be facing years in prison for meat smuggling.
Years in prison over buffet roast beef.
Exactly. But if we apply the Supreme Court's unlawfully remaining interpretation that we just spent all this time discussing, it safely categorizes our meat smuggler exactly as they should be categorized, strictly as a thief.
Because they paid their $20.
Because they paid their entry fee, and were lawfully present in the buffet as an invitee during business hours, they did not unlawfully remain. This judicial interpretation preserves the true serious nature of burglary.
It saves the big punishments for the big crimes.
Right. It reserves felony burglary charges for people who actually violate the security of a structure they have absolutely no right to be in.
It really puts into perspective why courts have to look past the dictionary definition of a single word and examine the actual purpose behind a law.
Absolutely. The literal word is just the starting point. And if you are studying this or, trying to apply these concepts in any analytical way, you really need a structured mental toolkit to evaluate these situations.
I think our listeners would love that.
Good. So I want to leave you with a step-by-step diagnostic checklist for issue spotting burglary problems, specifically regarding this tricky distinction between entering and remaining.
Okay, lay it on us.
Think of this as your exam framework or your real-world analytical guide. Step 1. Identify the exact moment of entry.
The exact moment crossing the threshold.
Yes. Ask yourself, did the defendant have criminal intent before crossing the threshold? If there is evidence they planned the crime before walking in, like the defendant in the Schultz case who cased the convenience store.
Right. The guy who admitted it to the cops.
Exactly. If they planned it beforehand, the entry with intent element is met right off the bat, and you likely have a burglary.
Okay, what's step 2?
Step 2. If the intent was formed after entry, you must analyze the defendant's status. Were they lawfully present?
Like the kid in the candy store.
Or a customer in a retail store that is currently open to the public? Or an invited guest sitting in someone's living room? If they have a right to be there, you move to the next step.
And step 3.
Step 3. If they are lawfully present, they cannot satisfy the remains element just by committing a crime while inside. To trigger a burglary charge under the remains clause, they must unlawfully remain.
So, losing their legal right to be there.
Precisely. A classic example of this, as we discussed earlier, would be a customer who enters a store lawfully during business hours, but then hides in the bathroom until after the store closes and the staff leaves.
Because the store closed.
Yes. At the precise moment the store closes and they lose their status as an invitee, their continued presence becomes unlawful. If they remain hidden in that bathroom with the intent to steal from the register, then the elements sync up and it is burglary.
That checklist makes it so much clearer. It really takes away the ambiguity and gives you like a concrete way to test the facts.
That's the goal.
And it leaves us with something really important to think about. If an 11-year-old's impulsive decision to eat a piece of display candy could make it all the way to a state Supreme Court on a felony burglary theory, how many other everyday legal terms are waiting to be weaponized by a purely literal reading?
It's a scary thought.
It makes you wonder, the next time you see a seemingly straightforward rule, whether it's a piece of legislation, a dense contract you're asked to sign, or even just a strict policy at your workplace, you have to ask yourself, what is the actual spirit here? What is the intent behind the text?
Words matter, but context matters just as much.
Because as we saw today, the distance between a terrifying masked intruder with a crowbar in the dead of night and a kid eating a candy bar on a Tuesday afternoon all comes down to how we define a single word. Keep questioning the plain meaning of the rules you encounter. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.